This film begins by showing Don Vito Corleone, a crime boss and also the patriarch of the Corleone family, the most influential mafia family in New York, who is listening to a mortician named Amerigo Bonacera. Even though Don Vito is hosting his daughter's wedding reception at his home that day, he takes the time to meet Bonacera, who seems to be in desperate need of his help. With a thick Italian accent, Bonacera tells Don Vito about his daughter, who was assaulted by her boyfriend until she was left permanently injured. Bonacera had reported the young man to the police, especially after he learned that the boyfriend had also brought along his friend to help assault his daughter. The police quickly investigated the assault case, but the young man and his friend were released, with the police claiming that they didn't have enough evidence to imprison them. Don Vito initially refuses Bonacera's request because he has distanced himself from the Corleone family for a long time and chose to trust the legal system in New York. However, his faith in the law was shattered when his daughter faced injustice, which led Bonacera to return to the Corleone family, who had helped him so much in the past. To show his sincerity and loyalty to the Corleone family, Bonacera kisses Don Vito's hand and calls him the Godfather. Bonacera then pleads with Don Vito to remember their friendship as fellow Italians, especially since he had never done anything that could harm him or the Corleone family. Even though he had distanced himself from the Corleone family and hadn't shown any desire to befriend the most powerful mafia family, only because he didn't want to run into trouble with the law. After considering a few things, Don Vito, who still values his friendship with Bonacera, finally agrees to help him deal with the problem. After Bonacera leaves, Don Vito then tells his adoptive son, Tom Hagen, to allow Peter Clemenza to resolve Bonacera's issue according to his request, ensuring that the people who hurt his daughter receive fitting punishment for their vile actions. Soon after, Don Vito and Tom are seen attending the luxurious wedding of his daughter, Connie, which is filled with the most prominent and wealthy Sicilian families. However, when they are about to take the family photo, Don Vito suddenly refuses to be photographed because he realizes that his youngest son, Michael, has not yet arrived, and he firmly states that they will not take the family photo without him. As the event continues, Peter Clemenza and the guests seem to enjoy the party by dancing, while Don Vito's oldest son, Sonny, looks irritated when he finds out that FBI agents are conducting surveillance in front of their house. Sonny also seems annoyed when a reporter tries to take pictures of the wedding, and he doesn't hesitate to smash the reporter's camera as he chases him away. Even though it's a special day for his daughter, who just got married, Don Vito still takes the time to listen to another request from a man who wants to arrange the marriage of his daughter to an Italian man who has immigration issues. Without much thought, Don Vito immediately grants the man's request, and the man leaves after thanking him. At the same time, Michael finally arrives with his girlfriend, Kay Adams, and introduces her to Tom, who then informs Michael that his father is looking for him. Soon after, the atmosphere becomes even more lively when Johnny Fontaine, a singer who is also Don Vito's godson, arrives at the wedding and performs on stage, singing a romantic song for the happy bride. Kay, who had no idea that Michael's family knew Fontaine, looks excited and asks how he became Don Vito's godson. Michael then explains that his father was the one who helped Fontaine build his career as a singer, and even used his power as a crime boss to intimidate a band leader who refused to let him go at the time. Hearing this, Kay thinks Michael is making up a story, but he insists that he's telling the truth. Although Michael doesn't hide the truth about his family's involvement in the criminal world, Michael, who seems embarrassed by his family's reputation, assures Kay that he is completely different from them. After performing on stage and entertaining the guests with his melodious voice, Fontaine meets with Don Vito to ask for his help. Apparently, Fontaine, whose fame has been fading over time, wants to act in a movie to regain his popularity. However, a studio head named Jack Woltz refuses to give him any role. Hearing this, Don Vito, who loves his godson as if he were his own son, promises him that he will take care of his problem and ensure that Fontaine gets the lead role in the film. After instructing Tom to handle Fontaine's issue, Don Vito returns to Connie's wedding and joins the photo session now that the entire family has arrived. In this moment, Michael even invites Kay to be part of the photo, and his family doesn't seem to mind. Soon after, Don Vito invites his daughter to dance with him, and the two of them look so happy. The following day, Tom arrives in California to meet Waltz and tries to persuade him to give a role to Fontaine in a war film that he will be producing next week. However, Waltz firmly states that he will not give any role to Fontaine, even if Tom and his boss threaten him. Waltz even threatens to report him to the police, but Tom responds that he is a lawyer. Before leaving, Tom gives Waltz time to reconsider his offer, or he will regret offending his boss. When Waltz learns that Tom works for Don Vito, he invites him to dinner at his grand and beautiful house. During the dinner, Waltz tells Tom that he respects Don Vito, but he refuses to give any role to Fontaine because the singer had ruined the life of a young woman Waltz had prepared to become a future superstar. Upon hearing that, Tom chooses to end the dinner and tells Waltz that he must inform Don Vito of the refusal. The next morning, Waltz wakes up in shock to find the severed head of his beloved horse beheaded on Don Vito's orders. Meanwhile, Tom has returned and meets Don Vito to discuss a business proposal from a drug lord named Virgil Sollozzo, who apparently needs a large amount of money and hopes that Don Vito will invest in his business. In addition, Sollozzo also requires protection and political influence from Don Vito, who is known to have close connections with high-ranking police officials and politicians. Upon hearing this, Don Vito asks for the opinions of Sonny and Tom, both of whom agree that he should consider the offer because the drug business is very promising and would bring more profit in the future. Tom also adds that other mafia families will likely be interested in getting involved in the drug trade, and if they manage to accumulate more wealth than the Corleone family, they would eventually unite to destroy them. However, Don Vito remains hesitant because Sollozzo is known to be involved with the Tattaglia family, their rivals. Sollozzo tries to reassure Don Vito by offering 30% of his business profits every month, a figure much higher than the amount Don Vito would have to invest. Don Vito appears interested in the offer, but he then approaches Sollozzo and emphasizes that his politician friends do not like the drug business, which they see as dirty and dangerous. Once again, Sollozzo tries to persuade Don Vito by saying that the Tattaglias will handle security issues. However, this only offends him, as Sollozzo is proposing a business deal with his family despite knowing that the Corleones and the Tattaglias are rivals. After ending the meeting with Sollozzo, Don Vito receives a bouquet from Fontaine, who has finally secured the lead role in the film after they intimidated Waltz. Soon after, Don Vito orders his enforcer, Luca Brasi, to spy on Sollozzo and the Tattaglia family. On Christmas Eve, Luca meets with Sollozzo and Bruno Tattaglia, who have been informed that he is unhappy under the Corleones. Because of this, Sollozzo offers Luca a chance to join him, as he needs strong men like him. Following Don Vito's instructions to infiltrate the Tattaglia family, Luca accepts the offer. However, Sollozzo is merely toying with Luca, as they have already discovered that Don Vito sent him to spy on them. Therefore, they proceed to kill him. Shortly afterward, Sollozzo sends his men to assassinate Don Vito, who is shot in the streets. The shooting of Don Vito immediately makes headlines in all the city's newspapers. Michael, who learns of the news from the papers, becomes panicked and immediately contacts his brother to inquire about their father's condition. However, Sonny informs him that their father's condition is still unknown because he is currently at his home. Therefore, Sonny instructs Michael to return to their father's house to be with their mother, who is still heartbroken and shaken by the incident involving their father. Soon after that, Sonny receives a phone call from Sollozzo, informing him that he has kidnapped Tom and will release him in 3 hours. He then instructs Sonny to follow all of Tom's directions if he wants to protect his family. Elsewhere, Sollozzo tells Tom that his men have shot and killed Don Vito. So he orders Tom to convince Sonny to agree to their business deal because he knows that Sonny is interested in the drug business. At that moment, Tom is shocked and devastated to hear that his adoptive father has been killed. But soon after, they receive news that Don Vito is still alive and is currently being treated at the hospital. Sometime later, Michael goes to the hospital to visit his father and finds that there are no police or guards protecting his father. Because of this, Michael immediately contacts Sonny to send some men and asks a nurse to move his father to another room. Shortly afterward, the police arrive, but their captain, a corrupt officer named McCluskey, punches Michael. Fortunately, Tom arrives in time with private detectives hired to protect Don Vito. At that moment, Tom explains that they have a legal permit for their weapons and that they were hired in accordance with the law. He also warns that anyone obstructing their work will be prosecuted. As a result, McCluskey, not wanting legal trouble, decides not to continue the confrontation and orders his men to leave. The following day, while they are gathered to plan their next move, Sonny insists on avenging Sollozzo because he had ordered his men to kill their father. However, Tom explains that Sollozzo is currently under the protection of McCluskey, a police captain, and if they kill the captain to get to Sollozzo, the Corleones will be ostracized. Additionally, all of Don Vito's political influence will vanish because politicians do not want to associate with people who have killed law enforcement officers, especially a police captain. On the other hand, Michael, who had never wanted to be involved in the family business, finally decides to help his brothers resolve the conflict that threatens their family's safety. Knowing that Sollozzo wants to arrange a meeting with him, Michael agrees to attend and brilliantly devises a plan to kill Sollozzo and McCluskey. Not only that, Michael surprises his brothers by declaring that McCluskey deserves to die because he is a corrupt cop and he intends to expose his crimes to the public. Some time later, Michael attends the business meeting with Sollozzo and McCluskey at an Italian restaurant. During this meeting, Sollozzo offers a truce as long as Michael agrees to his proposal to enter the drug business. But Michael, who shares the same view as his father that the drug business is dirty, appears uninterested with his offer. Michael then goes to the restroom where he retrieves a gun that had been hidden by Clemenza, and he proceeds to kill both Sollozzo and McCluskey. Because of his actions in killing a police captain, Michael becomes a wanted man, and the shooting incident immediately makes headlines in all the newspapers. Additionally, the police crack down hard on the Sicilian families involved in organized crime, but the pressure does not deter them from engaging in open warfare. 3 months later, Don Vito, who has recovered, finally returns home and is welcomed by all his loving family members. Soon after, Tom informs him that the police have disrupted their operations after McCluskey's murder. Although their business is in disarray and gang wars are inevitable, they manage to reveal the captain's involvement in the drug trade, which slightly calms public outrage. However, the first thing Don Vito asks about is Michael, and he seems saddened when he learns that he is not there, as he is in hiding after killing Sollozzo and McCluskey. Meanwhile, Michael, who is hiding in Sicily, meets a beautiful woman named Apollonia. From that encounter, Michael falls in love with Apollonia at first sight, and with great respect, he meets her father, Vitelli, to ask for his blessing to marry her. Vitelli, who is impressed by Michael's politeness in asking for permission to court his daughter, invites him to a family gathering so that he can meet Apollonia and get to know their family. Meanwhile, Sonny, who visits his sister, is shocked to see her face covered in bruises. Sonny can barely contain his anger and is about to hit her husband, Carlo, but Connie stops him and says it was her fault and that she hit him first. Not wanting to hurt Connie by attacking her husband, Sonny instead vents his anger by beating up a young man who made racist remarks toward them. In Sicily, Michael eventually marries Apollonia and hosts a grand wedding, while Kay visits the Corleone residence to ask Tom about Michael's whereabouts. The following days, Connie has a fierce argument with Carlo after discovering that he has been cheating on her with another woman, despite her being pregnant. Instead of feeling guilty, Carlo whips his wife with his belt and insults the Corleone family, calling them murderers. Soon after, Connie calls Sonny, and when he learns that his sister is being abused, he rushes to her house in his car. At that moment, Tom tries to stop Sonny, warning him that his recklessness could endanger his life, but Sonny doesn't care because he needs to rescue his sister. Sure enough, on the way, Sonny is ambushed by a group of gangsters who shoot him repeatedly, killing him. Don Vito, devastated by the death of his eldest son and weary of the endless conflict and warfare, orders Tom to arrange a meeting with the heads of the city's 5 major mafia families. Soon after, Don Vito goes to Bonacera and asks him to prepare Sonny's body as best as possible so that his family can see him one last time in a dignified state. Meanwhile, in Sicily, Michael seems to be living happily with Apollonia, unaware that his brother has died tragically. However, this happiness does not last long, as a few days later, Apollonia is killed in a car bomb explosion that was intended to assassinate Michael. At the same time, Don Vito attends a meeting with the heads of the mafia families that control the criminal underworld across the states to discuss the recent conflicts and issues. During the meeting, Don Vito acknowledges that the feud between the Corleone and the Tattaglia families has cost him a son, and therefore, they must resolve the matter quickly. Don Vito then brings up the drug business run by Salazzo, which is fully backed by the Tattaglia family. But unexpectedly, the other mafia family heads express their support for the drug business, even though they strictly forbid their own families from using drugs. One of the mafia bosses from the rival families, Don Barzini, stated that they would control the drug business. And Don Vito must provide protection because he controls all the judges and politicians under his influence if he does not want to be involved in the business. Don Vito agreed to this, but the head of the Tattaglia family, Philip, demanded a guarantee for this protection due to Don Vito's much stronger influence and position compared to them. Upon hearing that, Don Vito emphasized that he would not seek revenge for Sonny's death and would let it go, but he demanded that his youngest son be able to return to the United States safely. Don Vito also added that he would not hesitate to kill anyone who dared to harm his youngest son, and he would declare war on all the families if Michael was hurt. As a result, all the mafia bosses attending the meeting agreed to Don Vito's terms, and as a gesture of peace to end their feud, Don Vito and Philip embraced each other. On the way home, Don Vito told Tom that the mastermind behind Sonny's murder was Don Barzini, although they had previously believed that the Tattaglias were responsible for his son's death. Sometime later, Michael finally returned to the United States and met Kay, who worked as an elementary school teacher. Michael then informed Kay that he was now working for his father and asked her to marry him. Not only that, Michael, who had now taken over leadership of the Corleone family since his father's illness, made several tough decisions, including removing Tom from his position as consigliere and sending him to Las Vegas to manage all their operations there. Although this decision was met with opposition from Tom and others, Don Vito assured them that Michael had discussed all his decisions with him, and if they still trusted his judgment as the Godfather, they should not oppose the decision. Sometime later, Michael traveled to Las Vegas with Tom to meet his brother, Fredo, who was currently living in a hotel managed by a man named Mo Green. During this meeting, Michael intended to buy Green's hotel and casino as he wanted to expand the family's business in Las Vegas. However, Green firmly refused to sell his assets and mentioned his generosity in taking care of Fredo during the rough times they experienced recently. However, Michael countered by stating that the Corleones had provided Green with a bank guarantee when his business was on the verge of bankruptcy, as a return for his help in protecting Fredo. Unexpectedly, Green then threatened to make a deal with the Barzini family, as the Corleones' power had been diminishing, while the Barzini's influence was growing stronger due to their involvement in the highly profitable drug business. Even so, Michael did not feel the slightest bit intimidated and told Green to reconsider his offer. Realizing that Fredo was siding with Green, Michael warned his older brother not to side with those who opposed their family. Soon after, Michael visited his father, who then warned him to be careful because the Barzini intended to kill him and were inciting those closest to him to betray him and the Corleone. Don Vito also cautioned Michael that whoever insisted on convincing him to meet with Barzini would be the traitor. Soon after that, Don Vito died of a heart attack while he was playing with his grandson. His death was a great blow to the Corleone family, as Don Vito was not only a crime boss with significant influence in the city, but also a family head who deeply loved all his family members and had taken great care of them. His funeral was attended by all family members, acquaintances, and leaders of the rival families who wanted to pay their last respects to the Don. Meanwhile, Michael was seen observing Don Barzini's movements at the funeral, and shortly thereafter, one of Don Vito's right-hand men, Salvatore Tessio, asked Michael to attend a meeting with Barzini, which indirectly revealed that he was the traitor. Although Michael knew he would be killed at the meeting, he agreed to attend it. In the following days, Michael decided to become the godfather of Connie's daughter and went to the church for the baptism ceremony. While Michael and his family attended the baptism ceremony, the Corleone hitmen killed the dons of the rival families, including Green, who refused to sell his assets, all of this done under Michael's orders. After the baptism ceremony, as the family prepared to leave for a vacation in Las Vegas, Michael instructed Carlo to stay with him and told Kay that he would join her in Las Vegas in a few days. At the same time, Tessio, who was about to leave with Tom, was stopped by the Corleone enforcers, who had been ordered by Michael to kill him for betraying the Corleone family. Michael then confronted Carlo, who was involved in Sonny's murder under Don Barzini's orders. At that moment, Michael tried to contain his anger and told Carlo that he would be exiled from the Corleone family as punishment, though in reality, Michael ordered Clemenza to kill him. Soon after that, Connie approached Michael and blamed him for Carlo's death, which left Connie devastated by the loss of her husband, making her extremely hysterical. Because of this, Kay demanded an explanation from Michael as she sympathized with Connie, who had lost her husband forever, especially since they had young children who needed a father figure in their lives. At first, Michael refused and firmly told Kay never to interfere in his family's affairs. This almost led to a fight between them, but Michael, who loved his wife deeply, then lied, claiming that he was not involved in Carlo's death. Upon hearing that, Kay felt relieved and they embraced. Not long after Kay left the room, Clemenza and his men entered, kissed Michael's hand, and called him Don Corleone, signaling that Michael had officially become the new Don Corleone, succeeding his father as the head of the Corleone family. Moral lesson from the story: even if you don't like your family's messy business, don't ignore them at big events or they might mess up your plans. And remember, always check if your family photo is complete before you snap it. Missing a member might mean missing a big family mess.